I hope you are hearing me well, right?
Yes, we are.
All right, so make sure everyone to mute yourself, please. And then I'm gonna fire up. CABI is the Center for Agriculture and Bioscience International. That's what it stands for, CABI. Our mission is how to help people's life and how to feed more and lose less in our crops, in 2 words. So our mission is how to lose less and feed and how to lose less in our crops and feed more people around the world. And we'll try to use our expertise to solve problems in agriculture and environment. So food security is primarily via our priority and our prime sort of work and subject areas, and we do it via science, information, and communication. So we've been established in 1910 by a United Treaty. We cover, as I said, agriculture and environment, but also we have public health. We could see later the subjects that we cover. We're owned by 48 countries, and we also have experts in scientific publishing and international development. And we have something called SciDevNet. Please go and visit it, which is part of CABI too, which is about science communication, training and teaching. So this is other member countries, and you could see a variety from Eastern, Western, developing and developed nations, Switzerland, UK, Canada, you can find South Africa, and also Tanzania, Zambia, India, Kenya, and you name it. And this gives us a really nice mixture that we can help. The other, excuse me, our activities are really international development and research. This is our sort of work, and it's projects that we work outside of publishing, and publishing is everything that we do, like content. So something we call it plant-wise. We have invasive species, and we have many other programs. I can send you a link, or you could go to Google and put plant-wise by CABI. I will send in the chat the link, and you could have a very good information about what sort of programs that we do. And that program actually really makes difference to from other publishers, because it really has a hands-on on what we do and brings what the actual farmer is facing from a real life to science, and vice versa. We take the science and convert it, the knowledge in a different way to the farmers and help him to understand the scientific and expertise. Publishing, we cover different subjects, primarily, as I said, agriculture and environment, but life sciences cross it, like public health, sustainable tourism, animal sciences, and so on. They are really well covered via our ebooks and via our compendiums and our print books and our online resources, journals and abstracts. And if I go to show you some subjects, here we could see 83% of the content is journal and conferences proceeding, grey literature, like reports, etc., and books like chapters. We also have some theses and bulletins. The subject we cover, as I said, animal sciences, plant sciences, forestry. I always call it agriculture and its derivatives, like animal and forestry, aquatic sciences, environmental, food, human sciences, and tourism. And if I very quickly try to scan what sort of plant sciences and animal sciences we do. So here, some examples of animal sciences: dairy breeding, animal nutrition, veterinary medicine, etc. And if I go to plant sciences, plant nutrition, plant protection, horticulture crops, plant pests, etc. And then forestry, you could see here, forest and pest diseases, you could see forest and forest trees, etc. And then aquatic sciences, fishery, aquatic biology, aquatic animals and plants, So, and then environmental sciences, we talk about soil, water, biofuel, invasive species, water resources, and you name it, as you could see in the screen. Food composition in food science, food processing, food safety, food chemistry, diet studies, and obesity, all in food sciences. Human sciences and nutrition, food science, human parasitology, medical entomology, medical mycology. And then we have tourism, ecotourism in particular, sustainable tourism, outdoor creation, obviously sport and hotel industry. This is really, I wanted to go quickly, simply because some people were here last week and I don't want it to be boring for them. And this is the last slide to show you the sort of percentage of content that we have. We still have over 70% from the Western world, but we are working hard to add more from the Eastern world. This is the CABI introduction to you. And now I would like to stop my sharing and let Dr. Saeed to present his part, which is really exciting and interesting. Regarding the questions that we've put in the text, I will try to answer now to you. And over to you, Mr. Saeed.
Unmute myself. Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim, for the nice introduction. And I would like to welcome you all to this second session of our three session series for the navigation of international publication. Last time we talked a little bit about how to choose the research point, what are the motivations for us to publish, then how to choose a publishable research point, and how to make that research point more appealing to journals to be accepted for publication. And then we are going to continue today with the rest of the parts, which is going to be mainly focusing on writing. So what are the characteristics of a well-written manuscript? How could we write a well-written manuscript? So we're going to, as we did last time, we're going to break it down into smaller steps, and then we're going to go over those steps one step at a time. So initially, what makes a well-written manuscript? The first thing is it should adhere to the journal's guidelines. It's a very bad sign for editors when they receive your manuscript. The first thing and the first impression they get about it is, okay, this guy didn't even bother himself or herself to check the guidelines on our website. That means, you know, it sends a bad message about your manuscript even before the editor reads it or takes a look at it. So we should seek the guidelines for the journal that we would like to submit to early on in the writing process, so you don't have to write the manuscript twice. The journals usually give detailed instructions on the length related to the title, how many like characters for the title, the abstracts, how many words, the whole manuscripts, how many, let's say, words in total, or maybe the number of pages. And also the journals differ in their section. So some journals, you know, merge some sections together. Some journals split them apart, like the results and discussion section. Also the sections order in the manuscript. Some journals put the results right after the introduction. Some journals put the material and methods right after the introduction. So it's good to check the guidelines for the journal that we're going to submit for. They give detailed instructions on the text, the references, all those things. You know, you don't want to do them twice. So it's good to know that while you are starting your writing process. Also, if it would be good to know the intended audience for the journal, because that gives you an idea about what kind of terminology you should be using. For example, when writing for publication in a multidisciplinary journal, you may not try to dive deep. You may not want to dive deep to dive deep with the terminology in one of the disciplines covered. Okay, I have some comments about the sound. I hope you guys can hear me well. And let me know if this is a common thing with everybody.
Said, it's okay. I'm replying to them. I can hear you very well. No problem.
Appreciate it, Brahim. And please let me know whenever it changes, okay?
Yeah, if there is anyone not hearing properly, please check your PC or check your volume because I can hear him very well, and he's in Cairo and I'm in Tunisia, so big distance there. All right.
Okay. Great, great. Thank you, Brian, for letting me know. And please expect this kind of differences in connection speed and stuff. And I appreciate you sharing the comment with us. So back to the point that we're trying to make is, okay, if you're writing to a very specific journal, you don't want to use some broad terminology and broad language. If you're writing to a multidisciplinary journal, then you don't want to dive too much deep in terminology and using too much acronyms that are only known for a specific field, because that excludes that excludes the readers from different disciplines. So it's very important to take that into account. And this is something that when the editor looks at the manuscript, when they see that you're using the language, let's say, of the journal, they really appreciate what you're doing, because you're gonna talk and speak directly to the intended audience of the journal. So we're gonna take a look, a quick look at where to find journals guidelines. And here I'm gonna use one of CABI's journals. It's the CABI Agriculture and Bioscience Journal. This is a newly or recently inaugurated journal from CABI. It's an open access journal that is accepting papers, and it is delivering, CABI's wide spectrum of publishing areas together into one place that could be accessible for everyone. For every journal, there is the submission guidelines. So if you go to the journal that you're intending to submit to, you will find somewhere on that page the submission guidelines. And here I'm gonna try to show you guys very quickly how that looks like for CABI's journal, just as an example of what kind of information we found there, and how useful it is for us to visit the website. So I'm going to share this screen now, and let me minimize this so I can see the ribbons up. Okay. Brahim, do you see the CABI's journal page? Because I'm not sure if it is shared or not. Brahim, do you hear me? Hello? Brahim, do you have any comment to share with me? Okay, great, great. If we take a quick look at this journal's webpage, it's clearly up there. You know, you don't have to dig deep to find it. It's up there. It's submission guidelines. So all what you need to do is just click this. You land on the submission guidelines page. It gives you detailed steps on what to do when you want to submit to this journal. So it gives you some ideas about the aims and scope, because some people submit to journals that doesn't fit with the scope of their research, or their research doesn't fit with the aim and scope of the journal, which they call it the office rejections. So they might not go any far beyond the editor. They're going to look at it. Okay, maybe it's not even the editor. It's maybe the associate editor or something like that. So it doesn't go anywhere beyond that. So if the scope of your research doesn't match, it's out, and you only lose like maybe a couple of weeks or a month until it is on the top of the editor's to-do list for reading manuscripts that has been submitted to the journal, and it's out. It gives you an idea also about the fees and funding, and if there is a language editing service, and the copyright, how it's going to work out. If you're ready to submit, then they talk to you about how to prepare your manuscript, but it's too late to me, I think, is if you're gonna check the preparation of the manuscript at the late stage. So while you're running your experiments and while you're doing your research, you should be writing your manuscript, because that makes everything fresh, and that makes everything go smoothly. So once you get everything together, you're not too far from having a full manuscript to submit. So how to prepare supporting information, conditions for publication, and editorial policies, and then how the journal could be promoted afterwards, the peer policy, manuscript transfer policy. If it doesn't fit with the journal, would you like them to transfer it within the same publishing entity, let's say, and so on. And then the last step is submit your manuscript, which is the last thing that you're probably going to do later on. And it's for the submission step, it's a straightforward. You set yourself up for an account with the publisher, and then you just follow the steps where you can put all the information. And we're going to go over this stage in the next session in details. I just wanted to show you briefly, how using the guidelines would help you in writing the manuscript, and also to see that this is the final stage that we're going to go to. So now back to our presentation. So that gives us a very good idea about what to expect the journals to look for, and then where to move forward. So now, after having a good idea about the requirements of the journal and the guidelines, the last thing that may not have been presented here on the Agriculture and Bioscience Journal of CABI is some journals might provide a template for you to use, a template that is ready, that has the logo of the publisher, that has all details, all fonts are adjusted, hands-on guidelines on how the figures should look like, how the tables should look like, the footnotes of figures and tables, or the captions, everything in details will be ready for you just to insert your text, which is very good. And I advise you to do so if the journal has one, because if the journal has a template that is ready and you're submitting your manuscript without adhering to the template, that sends a very bad message about your manuscript. We already did the live demo. I hope that was informative. And Now, we know what journal we're going to submit to. We know the scope. We know this is the one that fits our research. This is the appropriate vehicle for our research, which is going to deliver it to our intended readers. The journal, the manuscript is made of small sections, and each section it has some criteria, and people have some expectations for each section. The main point of all these sections is to make people read your manuscript. So, for example, for the title, it is meant not to deter people away from your manuscript, from your paper. It is meant to guide people to read your manuscript. It meant at least to convince people to read the abstract. The abstract is meant to at least convince people to read the introduction, and so on. So that's why doing each piece appropriately is very important for the success of the entire publication. So we're gonna take a look at how to make your title convince people to read the abstract. So the title should be attractive, should be an attractive one. It should tell people the main finding of the study. Very briefly, very blunt, the main finding of the study. It should show the novelty. It should show the novelty of the research, how your research is novel and how it is unique, and how people should read it after what they have read in your discipline. And also it should adhere to the journal's guidelines, as we said before. And journals have some very specific guidelines for the title. Some journals use the number of characters to describe the title. They put a certain limit on characters. Some journals prefer the word limit. So by any means, you should not violate that, because this is the first piece of your manuscript. You know, adhering to the journal's guidelines there is very important. So let's do a quick exercise here. So here is a title of one of the manuscripts that I was working on, and please take a quick look at all three titles, and maybe decide which one would you prefer to use and submit to the journal. Very quickly, maybe in 15 seconds or so. Okay, the reason I asked you guys to do this very quickly is because some people may only give that many seconds to reading a title. So if you don't get convinced in that very short time to read the manuscript, that means maybe the title is not very effective. So we're gonna go through them maybe one by one. If we look at the first title, it tells us that chromosome deletion has an effect on ozone tolerance in wheat. It tells us some good details about the phenomena, but it doesn't tell us what kind of effect it has. And it also doesn't tell us which chromosome, the deletion of which chromosome that has that particular effect. If we move to the next one, it tells us the chromosome, but it doesn't tell us, and it tells us one more piece, which is increased ozone tolerance. So here it says it affects it. Maybe it takes it up, takes it down, we don't know. But in the second one, we know that it increases it, which is another addition. So here we have two more pieces of information from the title. If we go to the third one, now we still have the chromosome. We still know that it increases ozone tolerance, but now we have the parameter, which is ozone visible symptoms. So maybe if someone is interested on yield impacts, maybe it's not going to be here. They know it from the beginning. So now we have more information. When should we use the third one? We should use the third one, which is preferable, I believe, if the number of words and characters matches the guidelines of the journal. What if we don't have the welfare of having the ability to say that many words or that many characters? Then maybe we can take one step down, knowing that, okay, we're not putting all the information that we could probably add. And the same applies to moving from the second to the first. So if we use the third one, we're telling people what the paper is exactly about, which is very good and very informative. So with that, we hope that if you take that into account, maybe your title is going to convince people to read the abstract, and now you need the abstract to convince people to move to the introduction. Writing the abstract is a very interesting piece. Yeah, it should a well-written abstract should be written at the right stage of writing the manuscript, which should be written the last. So in this case, you have the whole manuscript written, and as Cristobal used to say, you can use the art of copy and paste. And for one time in our life, let's say, we can do something well by being, lazy, just copying and pasting. This strategy is very important because after reading the whole manuscript, you have the full picture of the manuscript. Additionally, by using some text or reusing some text from the manuscript, you don't have to write from scratch, which makes it easier. But most importantly, it doesn't create any conflict between the abstract and the body of the manuscript itself, because all what you're going to say is what is exactly being said in the manuscript. So now you're going to avoid that big mistake of having an abstract that contradicts or overreaches beyond what is being said in the manuscript. So I found this a very good piece of advice. Just keep the abstract for last. So what are the components, the standard components of an abstract? The abstract is intended to be precise and concise, to tell people, to answer people's questions about your manuscript. Why you're doing this, the rationale behind it, what is exactly you're doing and why it is novel, how you managed to conduct your experiments, meaning the methods that you have used, briefly for sure, and what are the results that you came across, and how these results fit into the big picture of the field that you are studying. So usually when people read the abstract, they would love to have all these 5 pieces together. And here we're going to move into one example of an abstract that we will try to see what exactly this abstract is missing. And let's say 30 seconds to read it, or let's say a minute to read it, and try to use check marks for all 5 pieces for yourself, to say, yes, we have the why, yes, we have what, the how, the what results, then what for the implications. So a minute, let's say. Okay, I hope we all had a chance to make it to the end of the abstract. And let's take a look at this abstract. So what do we have and what are we missing there? So it says that, okay, global food security wheat is very important for global food security. It's sensitive to ozone air pollution in ambient air, but we don't have varieties that are tolerant to ozone. So now we know why this research area is important. So what are we gonna do? Okay, we're gonna try to find a breeding scheme to develop ozone-tolerant varieties. And no wonder why we try to do that, because we already have the why up there. So how are we going to do that? Okay, we're going to use speed breeding approach. And then you get the details of recumbent inbred lines and all the detailed steps that we are going to use, starting from the source of the tolerance and what cross are we going to make and what breeding methodology that we're going to use to develop the varieties. Okay, and what were the results that we found? Okay, yes, Brahim.
Hello, Said.
Yes, Brahim.
Your voice is gone. Can you hear Said, guys? Can someone just write yes or no?
Can you hear me, Brahim?
Yes, so people are hearing you. Okay, carry on, sorry, because I lost you.
Okay, great. So where exactly, Brahim, so I can catch up?
No, it's fine, carry on.
Okay, so now we made it to the results. What are the findings that our experiments showed? And then you get the brief details about that, and then you get the implication of these findings in couple of lines. Sometimes people might like this ending part to be a little smaller, maybe more details here, maybe more details here, or maybe more details here. It depends on the number of words allowed in the abstract. And again, this is something that we should adhere to from the guidelines of the journal. So we try to use that maximum number wisely, where we can fit all these 5 pieces, maybe expand in the ones that we need to expand in, and maybe shrink the ones that we need to shrink in, but make sure that we have all the 5 pieces. And I wonder if you guys could guess how many words we have in this abstract, which seems like it is telling us all the 5 pieces that we need to include in an abstract. It's like 143 words, I believe, something like that. So it's not even 150, and still tells us the whole story. There might be some ways to make it better. I agree. People won't agree on one piece of writing, but it is giving us all the pieces that we need to include in an abstract. Usually the abstract is somewhere between, let's say, 120 words or 150 words. In most cases, this is probably the most appropriate number for the minimum number of words for an abstract, maybe 150 to 300, maybe, with 300 being a little bit on the extreme side. So for like this much of information in 143, this is very good. What I'm trying to say here is you don't have to write too much to deliver your points. In fact, in the abstract, less is more. Meaning that if you tell people the information they need in less words, that will deliver more impact, and that will convince them that, okay, this guy is not gonna waste our time in the rest of the manuscript, that this guy is effective. So with this, I hope the abstract would convince people to read the introduction, which is the next section. For the introduction, it should provide efficient background. And by efficient means, it shouldn't be too long. It should be reasonable. It should be reasonable in length. How long? Usually, a very good guideline for that is is what has been published in the journal. In some disciplines, short introductions are not really appreciated. I mean, very short are not really appreciated. In other disciplines, maybe you need to lay the ground for what you're going to do, especially if it's something political. Then the introduction is very has to be a little bit detailed. So how long? This is something that you can get a glimpse at from looking at what has been published in the journal. The other thing too is it depends also on your the size of your manuscript. So if you have too much results to report, then it's going to be difficult for you to put a long introduction too. So you need to balance, between the size of the different sections of the manuscript to make it eventually reasonably sized as an entire piece of writing. It should be logical. People should not get lost when they read it. They start with a very attractive sentence, and then they don't recognize that they have made it through the entire introduction until they make it to the end of it. That means your ideas flow, and I'll come to an advice about that in a moment. The other thing is it has to be fair, and this is very, very important. You need to give credit to previous work, and many people fail in this part, thinking that okay, if there is a publication that looks a lot like mine, so maybe I should not cover it and I should not refer to it. No, this is not a good strategy, because reviewers are experts in your field, so they will be aware of it. Definitely will be aware of it, and this sends a very bad sign that you are not fair with others, and maybe people should not trust you when they read what you're writing. So this is a bad signal that you should make sure that you're not sending it to people. Besides, this is also is not a fair behavior, so we should not do it anyway. So try to be as fair as you can, which means that you should do your diligence. Do your job. Try to read the publication in your field to make sure that you're going to be giving credits to all those who deserve. For how to make it logical and easily flow, I got a very nice idea from Xuan Hong at Virginia Tech. He told me, what? The easiest way to do so is to write some, let's say 5-6 sentences that takes you from the abstract into the material and methods. So these are the main points in the introduction that you want to deliver to convince people to read the material and method or the results after they finish reading the abstract. After you write those main points, you shuffle them, you move them around until they flow well. They make sense to you, and when you read them, you feel like they're telling you the whole story about why you're doing this research, the way you're gonna do it, and the way you're gonna show in the material and methods. You should start general with broad, as you see here, with broad aspects, like we talked in the abstract about global food security, why this crop is important, why this problem like air pollution is important, and then you move into specifics the more you go through the introduction. So you start general, you move to specifics, and you finish with very, very detailed, very, very clear objectives that provide some very good justifications of the material and methods that you are gonna present next, or to the results that you're gonna present next, depending on the journal and how the sections are organized. So you start general and you move to specifics. Here you have very specific objectives that will be used to judge your manuscript. and then that will be a very good introduction into the very specific material and methods that you have used in the next section. Once you get that very nice order, all what you need to do is to expand each sentence into a paragraph to emphasize the idea. And probably towards the end of each paragraph, you will try to come up with a bridging sentence that makes you switch smoothly to the next paragraph. So that's my advice on writing the introduction part. And hopefully by doing so, your introduction is going to convince people to read the methodology or the results depending on the organization. Let's the next section is going to be the material and methods. We covered some of these ideas previously in the previous section. It should be well organized, and it will be best if it is matching the order of the objectives. You have like three objectives. Maybe you're going to design 3 experiments. The first one is going to help us deliver the first objective. The second is going to deliver the second objective. The third is going to deliver the third, or something like that. So that makes people have a clear map in their mind for what you're trying to do and how you are actually delivering that. It should be effective. Effective means it should provide enough details to allow people to replicate the study. So if you are using a very established methodology, there is no need to put it in details, because that's going to use too much space while people are well familiar with it and it's well established. If you are using a method that has not been used before, then no, you need to tell people what you exactly did in that experiment so they can replicate it. So that's the point. You need to help people to replicate the study if they decide to. Whatever it takes to do so, do it. And try to be as precise and as concise as you could. The last thing is you should use as much visuals as you need, because some people prefer visuals over text, and some people prefer text over visuals. So mixing the two together is a very good idea. For example, if you yourself had to draw a concept chart or a flow chart or a scheme, or to draw a figure just to help yourself figure out how you did the experiment and to help yourself write it appropriately, that means probably you should polish that and put it into the material and method, because that means it's going to help people too, given that it helped you yourself to do so. And it's going to add a lot of strength to your manuscript. And it sends a very good message to editors too, that you take that one extra step towards delivering things to the readers. And it shows that you're passionate about your work. You're trying hard to make people understand it and get a good idea about how it was conducted. And as we said before, if you're using an established method, it should be correctly chosen. You should show that it is correctly chosen in writing, appropriately executed and appropriately credited. So you're giving credits to those who deserve it, as we talked before. And if it is a new parameter or a new method, it should be correctly proposed, clearly described, appropriately verified, so people can see that yes, this is a credible method. And if you're modifying a previous method, then you have to combine the two parts. A good reasoning for selecting the initial method, and you have a good point of modifying it, and then you did the appropriate modification and you did the verification step. We talked about this previously when we talked about how to choose the research point. But here you have to put it in writing. You have to put it in writing, because if you don't say it, how people will know it? So here in the methodology, it's about putting it in words for people to read. Again, credits should be given to those who deserve it. And according to the Declaration on Research Assessment that we covered in the previous session, we should give credit to research papers and methodology papers rather than reviews, especially when we are talking about the method that we are using. If there is a flaw in the method that has been brought up in a review paper, then okay, the citation is deserved here for the review paper. But if you're just going to say that this is the method that I used, then put a reference to the original paper, not just to a review paper that mentioned it briefly or quickly. So with that, we hope that our methodology is going to convince people to move to reading the results. And here, the results also should be well organized, and it will be best if it matches the organization of the objectives and the organization of the material and methods. Because when doing so, you're not leaving any space for people to get lost. Here is the objectives, here is the material and method that helped us to deliver those objectives. Here are the results in the same order, very clearly, very easy. So people, when they're reading the first section of the results, they have a clear idea what is coming next. They know it. And all what they need to know is what exactly the findings were. So that makes the whole manuscript flows very, very nicely. It should be effective, so you don't have to comment on every dot in a, let's say, a 1,000 dot figure. You know, you should comment on the interesting results. Anything that is clear, anything that is not that is expected, you don't have to cover it. You know, you speak to intelligent people in your field. So all the obvious and clear things, you don't have to spend too much time on them. If you feel like you need to briefly mention them, it's okay, but don't spend your life there trying to explain every single piece. And most importantly, in the results, they should be well visualized. They should be well visualized. So whenever you can use figures over tables, assuming that the figures are gonna be simple enough for people to capture the point, that will be more preferred. The only case where you prefer tables is okay if there is too much details, if there is like 4 dimensions or 5 dimensions that you cannot deliver in one figure, or maybe a couple of figures, then maybe here you should yield to idea of using, you know, of using tables. So make sure it is well visualized, and if when using visuals, you know, make sure that you use high power, high resolution figures. And let's start with the high resolution part. So if you take a look at this figure, there is a lot of information there, but they're very tiny. You cannot see them, and if you cannot see them, you will not be able to learn from them. And that means your point, the readers are not going to be able to understand them and learn from them. That means your objective from the results section is not being delivered. The high power point is the most important one. If you can summarize what you personally could understand from this part in a more simplistic way that you as an expert could see, but beginners cannot see here, that will make a huge impact on both editors, reviewers, and also the readers that are going to read your manuscript. In this case, you could put the two side by side like this, and if you don't have enough space, then you could move the less power version into the supplementary document or supplementary figures, and just keep the more powerful one that will deliver your point. If you have the space to put the two side by side, that's fine. So if experts need to dive deep here and compare the two to each other, that's fine. If not, then maybe the high power one is more preferable over the low power one. With that, we hope that the results will convince people to make it to the discussion. And as we said before, the more people read through your manuscript, the more likely they're going to learn from it, which is going to bring you back to the initial objective, which is spreading knowledge to those who need it. And also you get more chances of being cited, and your impact in your field is gonna grow with it. So now after the results, and as we said here, you don't have to cover every single finding in your study. You should be selective here, and if you should be selective here in the results, you should be even more selective in the discussion. Again, it should be well organized with a brief general introduction to the topic, a brief. It should be also effective, which means that you should be more selective even than the results. You discuss only what needs to be discussed. The clear things should not be discussed. They are clear. You should highlight the interesting parts of your study and your findings. You should not waste your time covering the clear things. And here it's your chance to show people how deep you could think in your discipline, and what could you see in your results that people might not be able to see, and how you deliver that to them, and you bring that into their attention. And it should be fair, and this is again a very important piece. You should be fair in your discussion. So when you are discussing previous studies, you should give them credits for the strengths of their procedures and their findings. And when you want to show that your results are different from theirs, you're talking about their results, not referring to them specifically. So try not to refer to the authors of other manuscripts, especially when you are talking about the shortcomings. Try to refer to the manuscript, to the study, to the findings of the study, to the discussion of the study. So if you want to say that a previous manuscript, let's say, failed to address a point, you don't say that. It's preferred to use a good language, a soft language in this regard, to say, okay, the discussion of that study failed to address that. Try to avoid using personal language when referring to previous research. And again, you should be fair for readers too. If your study has a limitation, then you should discuss it. So people, when reading the manuscript, when deciding about designing a follow-up study that builds up on what you have found, they know all the limitations in your study, so they could decide the next step better. And here, you don't have to use a negative language. So be careful here. Yes, you should be critical of your own, but in neutral words. So don't use negative words when you are referring to the limitations of your studies, and also the limitations of others. And you finish with the broad context in your field of research. So you start with specifics, and then you end up with the implications, how the findings of your study are gonna steer even slightly or very in a very small way, how it is going to change the direction in the field, or maybe in this specific area of the field. So try to take yourself out of your manuscript and look at it from the other's perspective. What could they learn, and how would be the bigger implications for your research? No one knows how would that be better than you. So if you don't put it there, maybe you're not helping people as much as you could with the discussion section. So with that, we hope that we gave you guys some insights on how to take it all the way from having some motivations to finishing a well-written manuscript and getting you ready to move to the submission stage. The last piece of advice here is before submitting your manuscript, probably you should make sure that after you finished it as a whole, you leave it away for maybe a week or so, and you come back to it with a fresh eye and a fresh mind to make sure that you got rid of all your biases while writing, and then you're coming back to it with some fresh eyes where you could apply all the principles that you apply when you are reviewing a paper to a journal. But in this case, you will be reviewing your own manuscript before submission. And definitely, it would be perfect if you could get a colleague, maybe starting with co-authors, then maybe a colleague who's not a co-author for your manuscript, and maybe then sharing it with the journal. And definitely here you should be cautious about who you're sharing your manuscript with. So when I say a colleague, that person should be someone that you fully trust, because your manuscript at this stage is not published at all. And if you share something with someone to take a look at, it is preferred to be maybe via email, so you have a record of showing. You have a record that shows that you actually share that with them. So with that, we should be ready to submit our manuscript, and this is going to be the topic of the next section, the next session, where we're going to talk in details about submission, how to submit appropriately, and how to increase the chances of your manuscript passing the desk of the editor, making it to the associate editor, and then to reviewers. And also we're going to talk about how to navigate the reviewing process, how to communicate with editors, how to communicate with reviewers, and eventually after the manuscript is being published, how to make sure that your work is being delivered to those who needs it, how to communicate it and to increase the chances and likelihood of it being read by more people, especially those who needs it. With that, we made it to the end of this part of the session, and I thank you so much for your attention. I'll stick around to answer any questions. And now the platform is yours, Mr. Ibrahim, to maybe remind people about CABI's platform, especially those who were not with us last time, that are joining us for the first time. Thank you all so much.
Dr. Sayed, many thanks for your great presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I do actually listen to it many times, and I still learn more and more things. So just guys, thank you for your presence. Last week we have spent about 20 minutes on how to search the CAB platform. Depending, is your institution or your consortium, like I mentioned before, the CNUTS in Tunisia, ULAC Beam in Turkey, STL in Saudi Arabia, EKB in Egypt, they do all have, and so many other institutions, Al-Ain University, Emirat University in Al-Ain, they do have CABI, many more, and Kuwait University and so on, so most of them do have CABI. So if you have any questions, I don't know, have you all been here last week? Do you want me to go through the CAB Direct or not? That's the question. Do you want me to go through the CAB Direct again or no? So if you have already watched it last week, I don't want to be boring for you. Please let me know. In the meantime, I wanted to tell you that we have broken down the presentation into 3, a journey on how to publish. We all know it's so important for actually writing an article. It's so important to know what you want to write and what about the writing, excuse me, and how, other research in terms of your subject that you want to search has been advanced. So you do a lot of research, and that's what we did last week. This week is about how to write. So important. So you do the research part and then you do the write part. Next week is so exciting. Why? Because after you do all this hard work and you're going to submit your article, that's so important. And beyond that, how to promote it and make it visible, because we could write a lot and no one could see it or no one could hear about it. So it's so important to see you after Eid. So I wish you Eid Mubarak for everyone celebrating Eid. I can see all the messages that they have seen the CAB Direct platform. So I'm just gonna quickly show the screen. If you already seen it and you don't want to see it again, please just leave the meeting if you don't want to be seeing it again. And I will see you after Eid on the 2nd of June. And if you haven't been here last week and you'd like to see the platform, stick around. It's going to be very quickly, about 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. As I said, whoever signed it, just leave the meeting. It's okay. And I will see you on the 2nd of June. And who hasn't been here, I think it's quite nice to see how to access CABI products. Yeah, just before I start this, I've seen someone talking about the certificates. This series has 3 sessions. Last session of this series, it will be on the 2nd of June. You all should be having all your certificates by that, hopefully, let's say the 2nd, by the 5th of June. Okay, going to CAB Direct platform is so easy, cabdirect.org. And then you need to log in. Let me take this away. So I'm already logged in, so that's why, otherwise you would see login here. You should have your username and password. And because I have all the CABI products, either I want to go to CAB Abstract or I want to go to CAB Archive databases, or I want to Global Health, or I wanted to put the full text, or I want to the review, depending what product I want to go to. However, I can use the search box, either the basic search or the advanced search. And I use like something I used before, let's say pest, and then I say search. And then I will get the results of plenty of abstracts and articles. Here tells me full text. And then I have filters. So you could see here when I just looked here, how many do I have here? So I can see in this year, for example, 2010, or from 2010, we had a lot of articles more than before. So I can filter this to 2010 if I want to. And then say update results. I'll start 2007, and then it's going to be more filtered results. And if I wanted to focus mainly on the full text, I go down here, you could see on the filter many things here. If I want specific language or product, so I could go to full text, click, find results, and then it's going to give me only the full text. And then you could see the orange button that will take me straight to the PDF of the article. Go back here, I can go to the HTML of the PDF. And then I can see the full article, and you can press and then see it here in full, again in PDF. If I want to print it, or can email it, or I can go to use the citation, depending on what sort of citation technology you're using, and then you export, and then you could use a standard format, either you want citation only or citation and abstract, or you want the full record. Also, you could log in your ORCID ID here, or if you wanted to select an item for the project. So if we're working on a specific project, I want to select this and add it to my project. Okay, that's not mine. Let's say I want to sign in, but not this one. Let's go to my projects. So I sign here. What does it mean? Any article that I work on and I like it, I want to add it to any specific project, so I can do it. Or maybe I have forgot my password for my CABI. So let's say forgotten my password is going to send me an email now. Please feel free, if you've already seen this, you don't have to see it again. I'm trying to so I'm changing my password because I forgot my password. And then I'm going to do it now. I have already changed it. I got an email. And then I can log in, and then I go back and add whatever I want to my projects. So I have a project called Project 1 already live here. And then if I want to go back to my search, I'm going to say paste and say search. And if I wanted to go to cut full text, sorry, I go back again, cut full text host, click here, fine. Doesn't really matter which one, I'm just going to show you. So if I want to go to this one or add the whole search to a specific project, so I want to select this one, select from here, and then you add it, select, I have project called Project 1, or if I want to create new project and then add to project. And this one has been saved to a project. So when we work as a team, this one will be saved. So advanced search, if I wanted, for example, I'm looking into rice and then I'm looking into pests in the rice. For example, if I wanted another specific thing which is also, for example, potato, and then say, if I want specific dates and say search, he's going to look within this three, rice and pest and potato, an article that may have correlation between the three of them, and rice, potato, orchard cropping system. So that's what advanced search did. I want specific thing. But if, and then I go on to the same thing for the article. But if I wanted something, I don't know that I'm looking for the rice and potato together and pest that hits both of them, but I wanted to go and work on mango, but I don't know what are the different mango diseases. I got the CAB thesaurus, it's easy. I click here, thesaurus, and then I look with fruit, crop, whatever I'm working on, and it's going to give me maybe things that I never heard of. Mango bark beetle. And then I put add, and then I put another one here. If I wanted to see here the dieback mango, and then you say clear the searches if I'm a bit confused and come back again. I want this one, and I want bud mite and the fruit border, and then it goes send to CAB direct. It will automatically search what I looked for and give me all the results for that. Yeah. So are you okay with the demo presentation of the portal? Great. So do you want me to go through more products? I don't want to make it too long for you guys. I can go through the compendium if you wish. Right, let me share my screen again and show you the compendium. So if I go back home, and then I'm going to show you crop protection compendium. I might miss it. Where is it? It's a nice, exciting data sheet that we all use. Here we go, crop protection compendium. If you don't have it, please ask your institution or library to provide it for you. I need to log in. And then by using a password, and then I'm going to use, and I'm sorry I cannot give you these details because they are internal. And here we go with the password. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I didn't log me in. Oh yeah, I know why. It's only CAB. Okay, it's opening up. So the compendium, it's basically different type of data sheets. And you could see we have basic and full data sheets covering different diseases, pests, and crops. So if I'm going to focus only on the full data sheets, an example for you, and then it gives me all the data sheets I have, and there are different crops that are covered here. We could click to any of these data sheets or look for specific data sheets or subjects. For example, there is an army. We should be able to see the army worm, which is quite new in Africa. So if I want to see this data sheet, basically it will open for me within a few seconds these data sheets. And you could see table of content. If I want to go to the risk of introduction, it takes me there here top, back to the page. And if I'm only interested into symptoms, I click here and it takes me to the symptoms. Back to the page, and if you want to browse at all, you could just go and browse it like this. It's really nice and interesting. Give you pictures, a title, and copyrights of everything, all the images, all the details about the description, symptoms, and rainfalls, and so on. And also you could see here, it's so important, the distribution map. And you could see here, like, where is it available. For example, it's available unfortunately now in Egypt, and you could see it also currently it's available in the UAE, in Yemen, in Namibia, and so on. I could zoom in and see more details here. But if I want to go back to the top and I wanted to create my own table, so I can generate my own table, and I just want pictures, description. Actually, if I decide don't want description, do this, go back, and then I want distribution, and I want sentence, and then come here and say generate a report, and then it gives me a report that I can actually use it to teach with it or learn or use it in my work. The other exciting thing in the crop protection compendium is the horizon scanning tool. There is one free and there is one premium. So let's see the free, so at least you understand how it works. So if I am interested in plant pests, click here, and then I'm looking into Egypt, for example, and then says stress. What it's going to do is going to give me the countries that around in Egypt. So if I want something that's available in Israel and we don't have it in Egypt and we don't want them to bring it to us, and say submit. Also, if anything that you don't want it. So look how many diseases in agriculture and plants and fungi that are available in Israel that you don't want them, or the occupied territory, and you don't want them to come. And then if you don't want to know more about this, you say CPC full, it gives me to the data sheet, and I can read more about it. It's the same thing. Okay, some countries do have some CABI ebooks as well. So very quickly, I'm just going to go to the CABI books and say I want to search the CABI books. So easy to browse and find out books. Say the same thing. I think I maybe need to log in. Alrighty, okay, let's go back. Close this. Okay, so here we go. We've got the books here. It's logged me in straight away and says subscribe. So if I want to look for something in the book and say crop, it's going to tell me every chapter in every book that has the word crop. And then you could filter down. And I just wanted to show you really how to open the book. So you could find books here in different collections, either the new from 17 to now, or in the archives. Anyway, so if I want to see the full text of the book, it will open it for me. Or if I wanted to go to the book and see the chapters maybe. And here are the chapters of the books. And then if I want a specific chapter, it will open it for me. Okay, so I didn't want to keep you very long because so many people have maybe seen this before. And let me go through the points. So yeah, so if we go back here, someone was, please try to send, register. We do have sessions on the second, sessions on the 9th, if you're going to get your own certificates. We will not be able to take emails from here and prepare certificates for you because we have a really huge number that we need to help with certificates. Okay, regarding the plagiarism and the timeline for publication, it will be covered in the details in the next section. Yeah, that is from Dr. Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Said, for answering the questions. So now I would like to tell you thank you very much for being here and attending the session. Remember, we have another one, an exciting last session of the first series on the 2nd of June. So please do try to come and finish the last series. If you have any other question, please try to email us or write down your questions now. Otherwise, iftar, good iftar, whatever I would say it, and nice dinner, and Eid Mubarak, and then we'll see you on the 2nd of June.
Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim, for the nice demo. There were some couple of questions about the certificates. If people are going to receive one certificate for all 3 sessions or individual certificates for each session.
We will have individual certificates for every session.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any questions about the presentation, I posted my email. Please feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll try to respond to you timely. Thank you all so much for being here and for your active participation and for all the questions that you guys have shared.
Thank you, thank you. Really nice to see you all, and many thanks. I have a great night and dinner and Eid Mubarak.
Dr. Ibrahim, just forgive me.
Yes.
Because I haven't made the register for the final session of the 2nd June, but I make it for the 9th June. So how to correct this mistake?
Say again, please. So you registered for
the 9th June and not for the 2nd June. I have to make the register for the 2nd June to finish this session.
Yes, and you haven't registered for the 2nd of June?
Yeah, I make the mistake. I
That's
put
okay.
the
Just
registration of the 9th.
Yeah, just register again on the 2nd.
I think it is closed now. I can't make the registration.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
Ibrahim, right?
you can make.
Okay,
Maybe you can send an invitation, or I don't know.
Okay, let me send you the link now that you can use. I'll put it now for anyone that has. Okay, let me do this because I think some people might not be able to make it, so you might find time, space to join. I'm going to put this down here, so and try to use it. And leave the one that you did on the 9th, so you can get a certificate for that part. Sarah?
Is it Sahar?
Sahar, yes. Okay,
Sahar.
okay.
Sorry. Sahar, I've just sent the link. Keep that link. Come with it on the 2nd of June. For the 9th of June, keep yourself inside because you get a certificate for that.
Thank you very much.
Sahar, I know you had a question about the distinction between introduction and
abstract. Yes.
Yeah,
I see there is the answer.
The abstract is a small picture of the whole manuscript. It answers all 5 questions all together, very briefly, very shortly. The introduction is meant to answer why you do the study and what exactly you're going to do it, and maybe a brief introduction to the methods that you're going to use, which ends up with the objectives of the study. So we don't go beyond that. But in the abstract, we try to cover the whole manuscript very shortly in that very limited number of words, if you could say.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Said. It is very nice from you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Sahar, the other point is about your certificates. The session on the 2nd, session for the 2nd, it's going to be the equivalent, so 9th, 23rd. So register on the 23rd. You don't have to come, okay? And you will get a certificate. But if you can't make the 2nd, just come on the 23rd. Because the 23rd will be exactly the same on the 2nd.
Ah, okay.
So what we did 3 sessions, one on the 2nd is going to finish 3 sessions, and then on the 9th, we're going to do what we did last week. Okay, and then on the, let's see, so then on the 16th, we're going to do what we're doing today. On the 23rd, we're going to do what we're going to do on the 2nd.
Okay, very clear. Thank you.
Thanks to you all, and have a great evening. Bye now.
Thank you so much.